Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
Isn't that technical?
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's all you need. That's all those little clickers are for.
Yep.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. Again, another week of it. Don't roll your eyes. It's going to be much more fun this week. Not that the past weeks haven't been fun, which they are. I think they've gotten just better and better. They've all gotten better since I had my buddy on. That was the absolute worst show I've ever done. So now I've got David on.
Let's see if a different friend can make it better.
Yeah. No, Buddy was fantastic. I'll have Buddy on again because Buddy is like the ultimate nerd when it comes to Star Wars.
Yes, and comics.
And comic books. We didn't get much into comics when he was here. We just talked about Star Wars, and for some reason we talked about Lamborghinis, or one Lamborghini for...
One specific Lamborghini or one kind of Lamborghini?
We were talking about, I was like, I don't, you know, everyone knows I have a DeLorean, and I kind of like it. It's kind of funny that my taste in vehicles is kind of quirky. Mm-hmm. And so I went into like, you know, as kids, all my friends, you know, most boys had like a picture of like a Lamborghini Countach, like a poster. Right. On their wall of a Lamborghini. And I was like, I never had one. Buddy's like, I did. It's like, well, of course you did.
Yeah.
That and the Millennium Falcon and your Star Wars.
Did you call it a Millennium?
I said Millennium Falcon.
Okay.
And a parsec is a measure of distance. It's not time.
Right.
I do it in 12 parsecs. That doesn't make any sense, you idiot. But then again, my favorite movie in the world says gigawatts, and that's not right either.
There was a justification made for using parsecs as far as time goes, because parsecs could also, because he's talking about doing hyperspace jumps. Okay. And in the case of Star Wars, it's talking about bending time and space. So if you're doing it in 12 parsecs, that means you're doing it in the fewest number of parsecs you can, because you did the fewest number of jumps.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
But that's what the show's all about, I guess.
Yeah.
If those wondering, you can hear me drinking. I'm not drinking. I've got a Shiner here that I've never had before. It's called Shiner Peach. I don't know if anyone's ever had it. It's not a bee beer, as some people would quote.
Oh, it's not fruity.
It's not fruity. I mean, it's got a taste of peach in there, but it's not a sweet beer. That's my definition of a bee beer, and I'm just going to say it and bleep it. A beer. I'm not sure if I even have to bleep that on the radio, but I'm gonna. My definition of beer is beer that's sweet, like Smirnoff.
Right.
Is a beer.
Is that even technically a beer? It's not like it's like a flavored malt at this point.
Well. Drink.
Okay, fair.
Listen to all these beeps happening. It's Morse code up in this.
And you were telling me to watch what I was saying. All right.
I did. Before David got here, I was like, okay, don't cuss on the radio. It just makes you sound stupid. And I just rattled off like 17 B words.
I mean, it was proving a point. It's fine. No, I actually like lambics a lot, so you probably wouldn't like any of the beers that I drink, because they're all fruit.
Well, see, I don't have a problem with fruity beers and sweet beers. My only personal beef with sweet beers, like any sweet drinks, like a cocktail or something, if you just pounded, what do you call those? Why am I blanking out?
Wine coolers?
No, well, yeah, but
hard lemonade.
No, what's that minty mixed drink?
Creme de menthe?
No,
Girl Scout cookie.
My point is, if you drink sweet cocktails all night, you're going to deal with the hangover the next morning, which is just 1,000 times worse because of all the sugar.
Right.
That's my whole beef with it. Don't laugh at it. I'm supposed to let the burps go just under the radar.
Right. Sorry.
You drew attention to it. Oh, learning the ropes. But yeah, this is not a show about drinking. This is a show about nerd stuff. But I guess
you can be super nerdy about beer.
Yeah, there's an entire show on the station. James Simpson has What's on Tap Radio, which is all about beer and microbrews and breweries, and it's kind of an envious show because when he comes in and records, he has all these people here, and there's usually kegs down the hall and stuff like that. Like,
oh, that's so nice.
Like, hey, Johnny, do you want some beer? What kind of question is that? Yes, give me beer.
I mean, you asked me that question earlier, and I had to say no. So. That's
because David has 2 sips of beer, and he is incapacitated.
No, that is not why. It's because I had bad chicken. That's...
Wrong pipe. Yeah, David had bad chicken because he left it in his car for like 2 hours or something.
No.
And it turned purple, and he's like, "This is good."
I lost my wallet, and while I was waiting on my lovely wife to come to the grocery store to pay for the groceries that I spent like 45 minutes picking out because I'm slow at this, it didn't occur to me, oh, the chicken's been sitting unrefrigerated for over an hour.
That's salmonella, man.
Yep.
That'll get you. That'll make you blast your core.
Which is, as we've discussed, not what that means. Blasting your core is not about removing excess material from your colon.
Oh. Okay, well, I've been doing it wrong. I thought it was... You know what? Never mind.
It'll work your abs, though. I mean, hey.
Let's talk about something, this segment, we're about 6 minutes. That's fine. Let's talk about something real other than blasting your core and drinks and whatever. I'm just making this more work for myself.
You are.
Now I have to go back and listen and put
apply that A440 tone every single time.
Yeah, I use 1,000 hertz.
Oh, you use 1,000 hertz? Okay.
Beep.
Oh, right. That is much higher.
Is that 1,000? Something like that. Okay. Well, let's talk about gaming laptops for a second.
Sweet.
The whole mentality behind gaming laptops. I love gaming laptops. If you can see on the video here, I've got a gaming laptop. It's an MSI, whatever, and it's got a GTX 1060 in there, and it's Core i7.
So you're telling me it has a better graphics card than the Surface Pro laptop thing or whatever?
Yes.
Weird.
Yeah, the new Surface. Well, there's 3 different models of Surface. There's the Pro, the laptop, and the Surface Studio. Which the Surface Studio is amazing. It looks really good.
But it has last generation graphics.
Last generation graphics, GTX 960 M or whatever. Mm-hmm. The point is that it's a 900 series and an M, which the new generation of NVIDIA graphics, a desktop, there's no difference between a desktop and a laptop card now. It's all the same because it's all so efficient. Which is not so true anymore because NVIDIA just released a new class of ultra-efficient graphics cards that they're putting in laptops now that are slightly underclocked and have slightly less CUDA cores. So I was like, wait a second. So so you guys coming out with this whole no, all graphics cards are equal now. You'll get the same desktop gaming performance in a laptop now that you get into it in a desktop. Well, the problem arises when you try to make these super ultra razor thin and light devices. Okay, well, no matter how efficient a desktop class graphics card is, even if you're only running it, 65 watts or something like that, that's still quite a bit of heat when your device is paper thin.
Right.
So, anyways, back to the whole mentality of gaming laptops. Yep. That liquid that went down the wrong pipe is coming back up. I think gaming laptops are stupid and ridiculous and nobody should buy them when, for instance, they cost $6,000 plus, like this Asus ROG GX 800 VH. It's liquid-cooled laptop. $6,000.
That is more than every musical instrument I own plus my truck.
That's more than my entire life is worth. $6,000. Okay, well, mine's worth $6,100, but
you could sell a car.
You could, yeah, I could.
You could sell a car and buy that laptop.
And buy the laptop, but that's my whole point. Why? Sometimes the argument is gaming laptops are stupid. Just build a desktop. You can build a more powerful desktop for the equivalent money,
right,
or less. And it's like, I get that, but you can't take your desktop in your backpack. You can do a small form factor build, but the whole point about a laptop is able to take it anywhere.
Right,
so
mobility.
So if you're able to take a laptop that can run all your games, AAA titles at full settings, that's just a bonus. Plus, a lot of people do video editing and all sorts of media content creation with their laptop. So yes, gaming laptops are great, are a godsend in that regard. If you can get a good gaming laptop for around under $1,500. Which, granted, you can build a desktop PC for the same price.
I literally built one last year for $1,500. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's going to be more powerful than the equivalent $1,500 laptop. Where I do think, where I actually agree that gaming laptops are stupid, are the $6,000.
Yeah.
You could build a baller. You can build a baller desktop. You can get a baller gaming laptop and buy a car. For $6,000. Not a great car, but actually you can get a decent one.
It would run, it would have air conditioning, and that's all you need.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my whole argument with gaming laptops.
It's perfectly reasonable. I was thinking about, when my last computer, the motherboard just fried itself, and you gave me one of your old gaming laptops. That you had put together just from various pieces, and it was more powerful than my dead computer. Yeah,
that laptop. I want to say it was an Asus. I say Asus
instead of Asus.
Asus. That's me. And it's not even an argument like, is it GIF or GIF? It's GIF.
It's GIF because because this is America. It is GIF,
and we are human beings that pronounce things correctly.
We're educated. We're smart.
GIF stands for Graphics Interchange Format,
not Giraffics.
Not Giraffics Interchange Format. And apparently, the guy who created the GIF protocol or whatever, a logarithm, he said, "Oh, it's pronounced GIF." I think he was trolling. I 100% think he's making fun of the whole thing. He's like, okay, once it gets back to me, the creator, I'm just going to say it's GIF just to mess with everybody.
Well, that's kind of like the guy who came up with the phrase manic pixie dream girl, and he's trying to get people to stop using it to describe things or come up with things. It's like, dude, you've released something into the ether. It's not yours anymore. You don't get to own it.
That's true. Speaking of not owning things, I don't know how to segue that into these next commercials coming up, but they are coming up, and that's my segue out of this segment. We've had me cussing a lot, despite me saying don't cuss.
Right.
Me burping, fluids going down the wrong pipes, talking about other... We'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator for the evening, as always. Stick around for a couple minutes. We'll be right back. It's a long segment, but you know how I do. You know how I roll around here. We'll be right back. That spacebar did nothing because I wasn't in the software. Now we'll be right back.
Face at once.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no.
Yeah.
No.
And I was like, let me just tell you also. No.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
Yeah, that would not be polite or wise.
No, it will not. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. It's me, Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator, and David. I won't say his last name because he's innocent.
I mean, if you look hard enough, you can just find me on the internet.
Well, I'll let you I'll let you plug it whenever you want.
Oh, okay.
What's your YouTube or your Twitch or both?
So the YouTube is youtube.com/The Jeff and David Show, and Twitch is twitch.tv/The Jeff and David Show.
The turf and vaping show? What?
That's Buddy.
Oh, that is Buddy.
That is Buddy.
So basically, the Jeff and David, is it the Jeff and David Show?
The Jeff and David Show.
On Twitch and YouTube.
Yep. We've been doing YouTube for like 6 years now. Twitch is a recent thing.
Longer than Geek Therapy. Way longer.
Longer, almost, or almost as long as I've known you.
Oh, yeah. I got my face blocked by the microphone arm here on the video stream.
We got to be able to see your pretty face.
Yeah, my pretty face. I'm wearing just an undershirt today, and Eric, who you met out there, who was the illustrious news anchor overnight with me over on KTRH. I'm wearing this undershirt. He's like, "Are you okay? Are you sick?" I was like, "I always wear solid colored shirts. How come the one day I just wear an undershirt? Like, what's the difference between this undershirt, white undershirt, and the different? I wear blue shirts and green shirts. They're always solid color. And
it's a V-neck.
Well, that's true. I was like, what? I frequently wear undershirts. Why does it make me sick?
It's probably because it's a V-neck, it's a white undershirt, and you're wearing jeans.
Yeah.
You put those three things together, I think it evokes a level of malaise or sickness.
It is kind of funny, though, the wild, just the full ends of the spectrum of like, right now I have coworkers asking me if I'm sick based on what I'm wearing.
Right.
And then earlier in the day, I was wearing a full suit and tie. And everyone's like, "Oh, you look really sharp." I was like, "Thank you very much." So I went from being Dapper Dan to
being
ugly,
plague-ridden Dan.
being plague-ridden, like festering, boil-ridden Johnny.
There you go.
So this week, I wish I would have seen it last week to let everyone know, but this week on the 13th, July 13th, this past Wednesday?
Thursday.
No. Thursday, correct, was Embrace Your Geekness Day.
Not geekiness.
Not geekiness, geekness. Like that's, some people are geeky. There's other people that are just, that they're geekness. Like, to me, that signifies geekiness versus geekness. It's like, you are a geek to celebrate your geekness. You are just a good looking human who likes Star Wars. That's your geekiness. You're geeky.
It feels like semantics, but I'll go with
it.
It
is semantics. Like, I'm a geek versus I'm geeky. It's like girls who wear who just wear the frames of glasses. Hipster girls who just wear glasses frames. I'm geeky. No, you're not. You're a poser.
You're a poser.
You're so lame. I showed Sarah that episode of South Park the other day.
Yeah.
One where they conjure up Edgar Allan Poe. Mm-hmm. She was not amused.
Yeah.
She does not share my enthusiasm for South Park.
Yeah, I was about to say, she doesn't like South Park at all, I don't think.
No, but that episode is like, it's like, you never watched, let me just show you this one episode.
Yeah.
Because I like the way they made Edgar Allan Poe just the ultimate emo.
Well, I mean,
calling everyone posers.
I tried to do that with Claire and with my wife in Dark Souls. I tried to get her to say, like, here's a game I really like. She got about 5 minutes in and she's like, I'm good. Thank you.
That's fine. And it's fine for two people to have completely
different interests.
And all I've learned is I'll watch South Park privately in my own shame. There's YouTube channels. I don't know how legal this is to say, but I'm going to say it. There's YouTube channels that stream live South Park episodes, just back to back, which I don't think Matt and Trey have any problem with. Because
no, I don't think they do.
Because South Park Studios has always made all the episodes free to watch.
Yeah, at all times. Yeah.
Ever. And there's still ads in the live streaming South Park episodes. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure they're cool with whatever. They've been some of the more avant-garde people when it comes to the current media space. Here's
what I don't get with that is the live streaming South Park episodes. You can tell that these are just episodes that people have bootlegged, like off their DVR, apparently, or they've downloaded off a torrent site or whatever they've done.
All there.
And there's ads that play on it. Mm-hmm. And so I've got this feeling that these channels just keep cropping up as soon as they're shut down. Like, this is not like one guy who gets like 1 million followers and whatever. So, it's just like ever changing. Like, as soon as YouTube shuts it down, he's like, I'll just make another one.
So YouTube doesn't shut down stuff like that anymore. This is something because we do video game stuff, and we did talk about animes for a little bit. If you want to have content claims happen real quick, review an anime, because every 2 months a different company will say, no, I own this, and try to strike it. But what happens is, and this is what Nintendo did, if they say they own it, they don't take the channel down. They don't strike any of it. It's just all the ad revenue now goes to Nintendo, because Nintendo says, this is our property.
Yeah.
It's our product. They don't take it down. They don't do a copyright like takedown, strike, claim. It's not one of the 3 strikes you get on your YouTube channel. It's literally just, all right, all the money you now make on this video goes to the quote unquote proper copyright holders. And in some cases it's accurate. In some cases it's just people being jerks.
Interesting, super geeky thing about Nintendo and specifically emulators. I've hinted at emulation a few times on this show because I'm just going to put my hands in the air and say it's gray area. You know, like
there have been some legal cases.
There has been some legal cases, but it's like, anyways, I will neither confirm nor deny that I run emulators or have. I definitely have the ROMs of games I own.
Yes,
and I will say nothing more in addition to that.
I can honestly say I have the the image burn of every PlayStation game I owned until they were stolen.
True. And you probably have them backed up. But you gave Sony money.
Yeah, at some point.
That's my whole thing. I've given Nintendo money so many times for like these games that I've, I've bought multiple copies of sometimes. Friends steal copies, whatever, back in the day. It's like I've given Nintendo $100 for this game directly. So I have no problem running it on an emulator, having the image of the game.
Right.
But that's gray. I think technically that's illegal. I don't know if I should be saying all that.
It is abandonware, and generally speaking, if you can prove that you still own the cartridge, they're not going to try to.
They're not going to mess with many like little fish, anyways. But what I was getting at with that is Nintendo and emulation is, as I understand it, the NES and Super Nintendo were emulated very early on, like even late 90s were some like the first builds for, I'm not going to name the emulators, but for NES and Super Nintendo emulation. So when Nintendo first released for the Wii, I guess their
virtual
console. As I understand it, Nintendo went and used the code from these existing illegal emulators. They went to the creators or whatever and were like, hey, instead of suing your butt into the Stone Age and sending you to prison, basically they let these guys do all the coding and all the work for them and said, just give us the code and we won't send you to prison.
Now,
which is interesting.
Things to bear in mind with that, and this is something that's come up a lot.
I could be completely wrong.
It could be apocryphal, but whether it's accurate or not, proper emulation, even of these older systems like Super Nintendo and Nintendo, is super, super duper CPU intensive. Like if you take a machine accurate emulator for Super Mario RPG and you run it, a quad core has problems.
Maybe, yeah.
It's just because
Super Nintendo, yes, 16-bit emulation.
Well, perfect machine emulation, meaning the emulator acts and reacts with the same frame speeds and everything as the Super
and
Nintendo
glitches
itself.
And sprite.
Everything is the exact same, and that's because it's having to emulate the hardware and the software simultaneously. And games like Super Mario RPG, where they actually had an extra graphics chip in the cartridge,
the FX chip.
Yeah, it just makes it crazy.
Yeah, I remember for a while when I first got into emulation, early 2000s, I want to say, they hadn't cracked the FX chip yet, so you couldn't play Star Fox or Stunt Race FX or Mario RPG or any other game, because they had some games, especially when the FX chip came out, where it said right there on the label, FX chip.
Right.
Or Super FX. What was it?
The Mario RPG was...
But I don't think Mario RPG had on the label FX chip.
Was that the FX chip? Mario RPG had something in it that almost no other Super Nintendo cartridge had, because it was one of the last games made.
Did Donkey Kong Country have the same thing?
No, Donkey Kong Country was much earlier. Donkey Kong Country, you could emulate
94, Donkey Kong Country was definitely 94.
Right.
Mario RPG was probably like 96. I think Mario RPG came out when the N64 was already
Mario
here.
RPG came... It was like the second to last or third to last Super Nintendo game to be released, period.
All right, let's put a pin in that, because we're at 12 minutes here.
Okay.
We'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. Keeping this outro short. Let's get more content. A couple minutes. We'll be right back. Johnny and David. Geek Therapy Radio. I hit spacebar again, not on the right software, and so now I'm going to do the actual outro. More GTR coming up. David, stop looking at me like that.
What? What'd I do?
Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I don't swing that way, David. Johnny Hamburger,
right,
your mental...
all your emojis on the text you send me would say different.
My texting is very professional. David is technically my boss in other realms outside of the state.
Yeah.
And so my girlfriend's my boss too, technically.
Yes.
So
you know what? Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it's extra. I was going to say inappropriate, but extra awesome that I send David professional texts that usually end with like kissy face emojis or hearts and
or
stuff
hearts
like that.
Or something like
Just keep
that.
it real. That way, if you know there's an imposter.
I'll know
like
if I just
don't.
get a text from Johnny that is professional from start to finish, and it doesn't say bruh, and it doesn't have a kissy emoji in it, then I know that wouldn't actually be Johnny. I know somebody's stolen his phone.
Yeah, wouldn't exactly. Okay, so machine perfect emulation. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Hold on. Mm-hmm. Hold on. What if the hurricane's name was Ditka? Anyways, old SNL.
Yes.
God versus the Bears.
The Bears.
Well, that's no contest. God, but with a slight handicap. Anyways, machine perfect emulation. That's important because most emulators, like the purists, vintage gaming purists, hate emulators, more or less, because it is not perfect. It is not perfect emulation of the game, and that is critically important if you're playing these games competitively, because whatever scores you're going to get in the game competitive, like if you're playing Battletoads, like a speedrun of Battletoads competitively, if it's not a machine perfect emulation,
right,
then if you're even off by one frame, like if the speedrun is off by one frame, because that one frame is exactly where you're supposed to press a button or not press a button or move the joystick.
It's literally just length of frames. So in speedrunning specifically, they're talking about some emulators being okay and some not. There was actually a big hoopla a few years ago when one of the regular old Game Boy emulators was determined to be like over the course of like 6,000 frames or something like that. It was like a full 15 seconds faster.
Wow.
Than regular.
Yeah, that's bad.
It's super important. But in games like, for example, Super Mario 64, where we're talking about the record is like going down by frames at this point. Like the 120 star record, they're going down just by the tiniest increments now. It's like, I can't remember the number. It's stupid.
That's crazy. Just a quick point. That's crazy to me because if anyone remembers Mario 64, first of all, when that game came out, it was mind blowing. We're just like, there's no way graphics will ever get better than this.
Right. Well,
so, but it's a 3D. It's an kind of an open world. Well, not really, but each level you can fully explore the level. It's a 3D camera floating around thing. So the fact that the speed records now, the speed runs are now getting to within frames, is crazy, because I can understand frames fully with like Super Mario Brothers 1, where it's just a side scroller. I understand that with 3D because the stick wobble. If you wobble Mario left or right, that's like one tiny little wobble left or right is probably like 10 frames at least.
Okay. So I know far too much about certain speedruns than I should. If anybody's actually interested in learning about records, there's a YouTube channel called Summoning Salt, where a guy actually goes through the breakdown of records for some of these games. But Mario actually operates on a frame rule. You can only beat the game on certain frame cycles. I can't remember, it's like every 24 frames or something like that. You can beat the game. So if you get to the flagpole when there are 23 frames left before you can win, that's the same as getting there right when you can. Right. So there are 3 or 4 major glitches involved that actually make the bigger thing. But it is down to like quarter second or something
These,
like that.
And these guys and some girls, they know, like, within the first level, within, like, the first couple jumps, they know to hit reset. Sometimes they'll get all the way halfway through. What's the speed run for? It's like 5 minutes or something like that? 4 minutes and 50 seconds?
World?
Yeah.
It's
4 minutes, 45?
I think it's 5:17. I could be wrong.
Think about that, because I did my own little speed run before in Mario, and it was like, I was like, I bet, it was just like with a friend. I was like, I bet you I can do it in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was pretty easy to do in 20 minutes. And I thought, man, I'm so OG gangster video game player, like that's probably pretty good. And then they went on YouTube, like speed run for Mario. I was like, what? But they're taking advantage of all these glitches.
Right.
And they'll get to the last, is it Bowser in the first one?
Bowser at the end, yeah.
Yeah, and you know,
Koopa,
you get the axe, King Koopa, and you know you hit the axe on the end of the bridge, and it cuts the bridge or whatever.
Well, when you hit the axe at the end, that's when timing stops.
Right, that frame where you touch. But they know, like, these speedrunners will get to King Koopa at the end there, and if they don't hit jump just right, like even if they're gonna hit the axe, like they know that if they didn't hit the jump at this time and at this pixel, they'll just hit the reset button and like try again.
Well, generally speaking nowadays, because the people who are doing these speed runs, they will speed run them for 4 or 5 hours a day for months.
Yeah, recording.
Just doing it on Twitch because that's their job. They'll finish runs just for practice sake. But generally speaking, you know whether or not the run is going to work when you hit like the first major glitch that's more or less random at that point. It's like, hey, if I do the turtle shell glitch or the bullet bill glitch and I make it work. Right. And the bullet bill glitch is you land on a bullet bill at the exact same time you would be climbing up a flag, and it skips the flag climbing animation. It's like 4 or 5 seconds. Right. Which is super important at this point now.
Right. And there's these glitches that... Here's the thing about glitch. Let's get on this subject.
Okay.
And I'll use... Well, for instance, and I mentioned on the show before, over a year ago, Street Fighter V was coming out, and I was super excited. I was like, oh, great, another I'm always excited for new Street Fighters. Right. I cried when they announced Street Fighter 4 in 2007 or whatever, because it had been so long, and there's so much debate. What is Street Fighter 4 going to be? Is it going to be 3D like Street Fighter EX? Anyways.
Oh, wow.
Whatever. And I was like, no, it's going to be a 2D plane. Mark my words. It's going to be a 3D game, but on a 2D plane. 2.5D. And then the ultra combos, the camera will swing around. Just watch. That's how it's going to be, and it's going to be great. A 2D fighter just with fancy camera moves during ultras. Basically, where you're not doing inputs. The camera, it's like it's a cutscene. You don't do anything in a cutscene. So anyway, Street Fighter V was coming out. I pre-ordered that biznatch for $100, like with all the DLC and everything. I was super excited. Like $100. I was in Switzerland. Like I was on a romantic outing, looking at mountains in Switzerland on the hotel's Wi-Fi on Steam. Like, no, I gotta download it. I had already pre-ordered it, but I was waiting for the day that it released to download a version. Man. And I downloaded it, and it said like version 0.01 or whatever, 0.00, and I was like, wait. What had happened was they released like just the beta version of it. I was like, why? I spent $100 for a broken game that I can't even plug my joystick into because it doesn't recognize my joystick yet. I don't even know if it still does. The game was broken, and that's my whole point of like there's glitches in games now where there's no excuses for glitches to be there. Yeah. Back in the day, to me at least, there was way less glitches to know about, and the glitches that got out, like the turtle shell glitch and whatever. Right. Even the most basic glitch that most people might know is the turtle shell on the stairs. We keep hitting it, jump, getting like a million one-ups. Right. That glitch was like one of relatively few glitches in the game, because they had product testers that would test the crap out of these games before it got released, because you couldn't do firmware updates or patches or updates like you can now. And that's what pisses me off about games now, is you get the games, and they're broken, and they release broken games, and Capcom after Street Fighter V said, okay, maybe we're not going to release broken games, we're not going to release betas anymore, we're going to actually test them and release the final products. You don't say that releasing a final product is good.
Right. Now, I will say, don't blame Don't blame the product testers.
Just don't buy it. Okay.
Don't blame the product testers. All those glitches, the product testers found. It's just the programmers didn't fix them for whatever reason.
Okay. Right. On that note, we're going to end that segment there at a clean 10 minutes. Segment 3 is over of GTR, Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger here with David.
Hi.
Almost said his last name. Doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but I'm not going to say it on the radio. We'll be right back. Final segment, Geek Therapy Radio, in just a few minutos. And I'm going to make sure my spacebar actually stops this one. Here we go now.
Rap of the rapper.
Rap of the rapper. Okay, final segment, Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger. I keep saying mental curator. Maybe if I make t-shirts, it'll be like Geek Therapy Radio with Johnny Hamburger, mental curator. I think if I was going to make Geek Therapy Radio shirts, it was going to just say like GTR, Geeks Are Sexy. And then have that's kind of what I want the motto to be.
Okay, Geeks Are Sexy?
Geeks Are Sexy. That's one of the mottos of the show.
Okay.
The main motto, let's just let Dead Air go for a second while I remember. The main mission statement of the show is that there's a geek in all of us. So no matter what you're into, like I always use the example, there's some guy driving along right now in his old Mustang. Well, that's very specific. If some guy right now is listening to the radio in his old Mustang.
I mean,
an actual old Mustang.
Big state, big city, probably.
Yeah. Maybe someone listen on iHeart. Point is, you have a classic car and you're like, a classic muscle car, and you're like, I love muscle cars, I'm not a geek. No, yeah, you are. You're a geek about old muscle cars.
You can tell me how much PSI is in every single piston of that engine. You can tell me how old the oil is and what its viscosity is. You're a geek.
Yeah, yes, and a PSI. What you're just throwing.
I'm just using words. What do you think I know about cars?
You know the compression of each cylinder. You're right. One time, there's some dudes and girls that don't know jack about cars, like to a deadly.
Okay, I know more than that.
Deadly fault.
Like, I've repaired non-critical parts of my car before.
I was with a friend over 10 years ago. We stopped at the gas station, and when we were driving, I felt his car, you could tell, was pulling a little bit to the left. I said, okay, so just your front and left tire. I looked at it, I was like, it's a little low. Just top it up. I'm going to go in and get us some Gatorades or whatever. So I went and got us Gatorades. I come out, and he starts filling the tire before I even went into the store. And I'm coming out, and he's still filling it. This was like 10 or 15 minutes
by.
Like, I went to the bathroom and everything.
No.
And I was like, dude, stop. It's like, what? The tire on the rim looked like an actual, like, real, like, inner tube.
Oh,
like
no.
it was bowed out round.
It was a Looney Tunes classic car tire at that point.
With the little, yeah, exactly. I was like, dude, no. Yeah, before I even got there to see how big the tire was, like, just the fact that I walked out the door and he was still feeling, I was like, stop. So he took it off, and I kind of like went like safely, like I opened the door, and I kind of got a pen or whatever, and like using the door as a shield,
right?
Pressed the release valve of the thing. And I was like, dude, you could have just died.
Yeah.
Like, here's what a tire is made of. It's not just bubblegum rubber.
No.
There's steel in there.
Yes.
And under that much pressure, if it blew up, you would be dead. It could actually take your head clean off your shoulders.
Right.
He's like, I had no idea. It's like, did your dad never, like, even basically, like, it says on the tire.
How many PSI? Like, yeah, that was...
Like, rule of thumb, if you don't know, just, you're probably pretty good with 30. That's a little low.
But you can probably...
I do, like, 40-ish. I tend to go a little bit higher.
I read what's on the tire.
What's on the tire, exact. That's the whole point. What you're supposed to do is on the tire. So when that thing is shooting up, like, past 100...
Oh, no.
It was past 100.
Testament to that tire for not exploding.
Yeah. This was on a cheap little Hyundai. Oh, memories. Those are good memories, though. What we were talking about? We were talking about complete switching gears.
Right.
You like that car lingo? Switching gears. We were talking about input lag.
Right.
And why it's important to video games. Now... my recent experience with input lag those of you who don't know, I play Street Fighter. I haven't played it very much competitively, but I do play Rocket League competitively.
Right. Yes.
And input lag is important in any esport, any competitive game, which calling a video game a sport is a whole nother other thing. Yep. Anyways, in any esport, any video game you play competitively, frames count. And latency, input lag, aka input lag, is the amount of time between you pressing a button and the character on the screen doing the action.
Right.
So in Street Fighter, if you're hitting light jab, it's the time between hitting light jab on your controller or your joystick and the time the jab comes out on the screen. Now, and except to me, playing online over the internet, an acceptable input lag playing Rocket League or Street Fighter online. I stress online because person in real life, like human to human playing on the same console, this time would not be acceptable. But online, acceptable to me is anything under 50 milliseconds, which is like half of a. It's like half a frame. If you're doing 60 frames a second.
60 frames a second. Yeah, it'd be half a frame.
It's like half a frame.
Wait, 50 milliseconds?
50 milliseconds.
That's so like 0.05 of a frame.
Okay. Point is, it's less than a frame, and it's acceptable online, which is amazing considering you're playing somebody conceivably from, like, Europe.
Right.
You have to have a good connection to play somebody from Europe with input lag under 50 milliseconds.
Right.
That count, that 50 millisecond time, that the ping time is called ping.
Yep.
Isn't necessarily the latency between pressing the button and on the screen. What you have to add to that is the actual transmission of data to your whatever screen you're looking at.
Right.
So on a PC, that's pretty quick. And even monitors will advertise gaming monitors input lag 1 millisecond or 2 milliseconds.
Right. Refresh rate's real high, that kind of thing.
That's the native refresh rate of that monitor. So you're adding, let's say like the best gaming monitors are like 1 millisecond, which is crazy. 1 millisecond plus 50 milliseconds of the ping between you and the person you're playing online.
Right.
And again, 50 milliseconds is good. That's ideal. Like that's the low. I've seen it go lower. I've seen it go to like, I've rarely seen single digit, like 9 milliseconds. But if you're around 50, you're pretty good. My recent experience with input lag was I was trying to play Rocket League. I was plugged my laptop into the big screen, and it was unplayable. It was the input lag was just unplayable. It was almost it was half a second, which doesn't seem like a lot, but is just punching underwater. You know those dreams,
especially like with a game like Rocket League, where you are expected to make inputs real quick because you're reacting to a giant exploding flaming ball the size of your car rushing across the field.
And it's a physics-based game. It's on the Unreal Engine. It's a physics-based game, meaning that just because you touch the ball doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere near towards the goal.
Right. Also, with games like this, there is actually predictive technology inside of it, because in order to lower the processing power necessary to say all these things are happening at once, it determines, okay, your car is going at this speed, at this direction, and you're turning this way for at least the next 3/4 of a second, you're going to be here. So it just knows that, and it doesn't have to try to render that. So you add additional latency on top of it's predicting the future, and then you get even more problems.
That's true. So I guess what we just mentioned might have ruined games for a lot of people who weren't aware of input lag, who just thought, who may have not have noticed. Okay, like if you're playing, there are some games that it really doesn't matter so much.
Well, like strategy
Final
RPG
Fantasy games where it's like,
well, some of the more recent Final Fantasies are live action, but live action's not the word I'm looking for. Real time, that's the one.
When the battles are in real time, it matters more.
But if you're playing like a Fire Emblem or an older Final Fantasy game, just a classic JRPG where it's all menu based, you're fine.
Or like even a casual platformer. Like if you're playing, I was going to say Meat Boy, but that's not really
casual. That's not casual at all.
That's actually pretty hard.
Yeah, that's intense.
Oh, Here's what we can talk about for the last minute or two.
All right, do it.
This is good. I'm glad I remember this. Eric came in last night and he posed a question. He's like, dude, don't you think, like, wouldn't the, like, modern gamer kids just destroy at old, like, Nintendo games? Like, the guys who... Hold on, don't answer this yet, because I'm going to give my reply first to his query. It's like, don't you think the kids who were, like, grew up with playing Halo and with a million buttons on the controller and a million things going on would just destroy at like, vintage video games? And I was like... not necessarily, because basically there's terminology in the gamer world of, is it hard or is it Nintendo hard? Because there are games, old games from the 80s, like Castlevania and Battletoads most famously, that no, you could take the best, like, esports gamer ever, and if he has no experience with those games, he will get eaten alive and made to look like a giant crying baby, because those games are so freaking hard. Just because they're old and they look primitive, one reason they made them so hard in Castlevania's case is you could get all the way to the last level, die, and you're back right at the beginning of the game. That sucks. So
Nintendo hard is another way of looking at the phrase Nintendo hard is hard for all the wrong reasons. Because a game can be difficult, like Dark Souls, or anything like that.
Dark Souls reference. Good.
Yeah, it's just
Happy
one of
Jeff.
my favorite games.
Happy Jeff.
So there are games like that where it's difficult because it's trying to get you to pay attention to your environment, all your decisions count, yada, yada, yada. And then there are games like Battletoads where it's difficult because, oh, you didn't know that invisible pit was an invisible pit and it kills you?
Yeah.
Well, it's an invisible pit and it kills you. You don't have this level memorized? What's wrong with you?
Well, specifically Battletoads, and we got to get out here. Specifically Battletoads, I'm thinking of, what is it, the second level where you're on the
speeder bike.
The speeder bike. Yep. In the blocks that are coming at you, the barriers.
They flash, and then they're there.
Yeah. And that level is already going so fast. Like, and you basically have to get it down to memory. Like,
you have to memorize it.
Right. So I don't care how good somebody is at Halo or Call of Duty. Like, you will be humbled quickly by some old video games,
because you have to have the game memorized.
You have to have it memorized, like,
what's up
to the frame. And games back then, they were going 60 frames a second. Back in the 80s, a lot of them. Battletoads is definitely going 60. Battles made by Rare. Rare is one of my favorite developers ever. On that note, that's it for Geek Therapy Radio. David, I'll let you plug your stuff again, please. Please plug your stuff, David.
If you like the sound of my voice and would like to hear someone else also talk about video games, we do boss guides for certain games. We do Let's Plays. We do walkthroughs. We do recommendations. We do just random stuff. It's the Jeff and David Show on YouTube and twitch.tv/The Jeff and David Show. We stream Tuesdays from 9 to 11 Central Time every week.
That was a solid minute of plugs. Not even
real quick.
It was fine. Any content that I'm not having to physically speak is just someone else doing my job, so that's fine with me.
There you go.
More Geek Therapy Radio next week, because this show's done. That was a terrible way to outro a show. More Geek Therapy Radio next week. So not coming up in a minute or two. You can go back and listen to the podcast. There's a bunch of podcasts at this point. I've been on for a few months. I'm a pro. Let me whistle. Let me blow my nails. I didn't cut my nails. I love all of you, especially my geeks. You're good. Don't be so hard on yourselves. Do something good for yourself. Do something good for other people. We're all in this together. Don't be such chodes to each other. Don't be a chode to yourself, most importantly. I just wanted to say chode.
You just want to see how many times you can say that?
Chode. More Geek Therapy Radio next week.